The story starts in Bangladesh. On February 7, 2016, the governor of the Bangladesh Bank stepped out of the elevator on the 9th floor and headed to the back office of the Accounts and Budget Department. This was the most secure area of the building with limited access. He was there to address an issue that had been causing some disruption for the past few days. The bank's automatic printer had stopped working. A minor incident, but it caused a major disruption as the printer was responsible for printing important transaction reports throughout the day, in real time. Due to the malfunction, the printer was unable to operate and transaction reports were backed up. After a long period of troubleshooting, the printer was finally restarted. However, as soon as the transaction reports began to print, something strange happened. There were more statements than usual, and upon closer inspection, staff discovered a series of suspicious transactions. 35 transfer requests worth millions of dollars had been sent, from the Bangladesh bank's account to accounts overseas. The problem was, no one in the bank had authorized these transactions, and the SWIFT security system should have been impenetrable. SWIFT, Society for Worldwide Interbank Financial Telecommunication, is a global system established in 1973 that enables banks and financial institutions to securely exchange information for international money transfers. SWIFT doesn't process transactions, but transmits information with security standards comparable to military-grade protection. The bank governor realized the scale of the problem when he looked at the transactions. In total, the amount involved was nearly $1 billion, a huge sum, accounting for a significant portion of the country's reserves. Where did the money go? Who was responsible? Panic set in as staff tried to stop the payments, but it seemed too late. The earlier printer malfunction had delayed their response. Bangladesh had just lost nearly $1 billion. But how? This incident occurred in February 2016, but the story actually began in May 2015, more than 3,000 kilometers away, at a branch of RCBC Bank in the Philippines. A group of people had opened 4 bank accounts with just $500 in each and then left, leaving the accounts seemingly abandoned. Meanwhile, in Bangladesh, a rapidly developing country, the central bank was located in the financial district of the capital Dhaka, a bustling city of nearly 20 million people. However, despite its rapid growth, it was a country that could not afford to lose $1 billion of taxpayers' money. In January 2016, just a month before the incident, a Bangladesh bank employee had inadvertently opened a phishing email while checking his inbox at work. He didn't realize that he had just triggered a chain of events that would shake the country's banking system. The malware installed a program on the central bank's computer system, allowing hackers to infiltrate the internal network and monitor the bank's processes. In February 2016, on a weekend when banks were closed, coinciding with the Islamic weekend, which typically falls on Friday and Saturday rather than Saturday and Sunday, an intruder once again breached the system. Their goal was to manipulate international transactions. Indeed, SWIFT is a highly secure global payment network that ensures safe and reliable transactions between banks worldwide. It has become the gold standard in the international banking system. And that's exactly why hackers often target individuals' login credentials instead of going after the banks themselves. It's much easier to steal your money if they have your personal information. But for these hackers, it was different. Instead of targeting individuals, they went straight for the source, the bank itself. Using stolen credentials from the bank's internal systems, they were able to take control of the SWIFT terminals and act as if they were legitimate bank employees. While SWIFT is incredibly secure, the banks that use it are still responsible for their own security systems. If a bank's internal security is weak, SWIFT can actually be a liability. That's exactly what happened in this case. 35 fraudulent transfer requests, totaling $951 million, were sent to the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. The reason they sent these fraudulent transfer requests to New York is because the Bangladesh Bank has a reserve account there, holding billions of dollars for international transactions. The transactions took place over just a few hours, on a Friday in New York City, one of the world's biggest financial centers. The Federal Reserve Bank of New York was suddenly inundated with a flood of fraudulent payment requests from Bangladesh. New York banks are known for their high security standards, so there was no immediate reason to question these transactions, especially since they had been validated by SWIFT. As a result, they proceeded to process the transfer requests. On Sunday morning, Bangladesh bank employees returned to work and hurried to fix the malfunctioning printer connected to the SWIFT network. Unbeknownst to them, hackers had deliberately sabotaged the printer, erasing critical transaction records and blocking confirmation messages, effectively buying themselves the time needed to carry out their plan. At that time, in Sri Lanka, a stunning island nation in South Asia known for its beautiful beaches and rich cultural heritage, $20 million was transferred to an account at Pan Asia Bank, belonging to a company called Shalika Foundation. The money came from the Federal Reserve Bank in New York, and it was just one of 35 transfer requests sent across Asia. In Bangladesh, bank employees managed to fix the printer and began processing the transfer requests. They quickly realized there were 35 transfer orders totaling nearly $1 billion. They tried to send a stop payment request to New York, but since it was a Sunday, no one was there to handle it. By Monday, when staff in New York returned to work, it was already too late. By a stroke of luck, the automatic system in New York flagged 30 of the transactions for manual review. One of the transfer requests contained a keyword that matched the name of a shipping company blacklisted for violating U.S. sanctions. Because of this, $870 million in transfer requests were blocked. Upon closer inspection, the bank staff noticed several irregularities in these requests. They found unusually large sums of money being directed to personal accounts or entities instead of banks, which raised suspicions. Recognizing the enormous total amount involved, they requested confirmation from Bangladesh. Once the stop payment request from Bangladesh was finally received, the transactions were successfully halted. It's true that 30 transactions totaling $870 million would never reach the hackers. However, 5 transactions totaling $101 million managed to bypass the system's automated checks. This was a significant amount of money successfully transferred. So, where did these 5 transactions end up? As we know, the first transaction went to Sri Lanka, where $20 million was sent to a personal account at Pan Asia Bank via Deutsche Bank. The money was intended for an entity called Shalika Foundation. Suspicious of such a large sum going to a small non-governmental organization in Sri Lanka, a Pan Asia Bank employee flagged the transaction and requested verification from Deutsche Bank. At Deutsche Bank in Frankfurt, the transaction was further examined. Similar to New York, the system detected irregularities, including a typo, foundation instead of foundation. These anomalies prompted a more thorough investigation, which ultimately revealed that Shalika Foundation was a fraudulent organization. The funds were subsequently returned to the account of the Bangladesh Bank in New York. Then, only 4 transactions with a total value of $81 million remained. All 4 transactions were sent to the same country, the same bank, and even the same branch, the RCBC branch on Jupiter Street, just outside Manila, Philippines. These 4 accounts had been inactive for 9 months, each containing only $500, until $81 million were suddenly deposited into them. This sudden transfer should have been scrutinized more carefully by RCBC, but for some reason, these transactions were approved. Later, these accounts were found to be using fake information. The money was quickly withdrawn and laundered through casinos, then converted into cash. The Bangladesh Bank tried to stop the transactions, but time was not on their side. The stop payment order did not reach RCBC on Monday as expected, because Monday was Lunar New Year, a public holiday in the Philippines. By the time the bank resumed operations, it was already too late. At this point, you may have noticed something strange. Every step of the prevention process seemed to encounter interruptions, all of which worked to the hackers' advantage. This was premeditated. It was a meticulously planned attack. On Thursday evening, the hackers infiltrated the system just before the weekend in Bangladesh, when the bank was closed. On Friday, The Federal Reserve Bank in New York attempted to clarify the requests with the Bangladesh Bank, but no one was available to respond. By Sunday, Bangladeshi staff returned to work after the weekend, but the stop payment request could not reach New York because it was the weekend in the U.S. On Monday. The U.S. finally received the stop payment order, but the Philippines did not, as it was Lunar New Year, a public holiday in that country. It wasn't until Tuesday, 5 days after the heist, that staff at RCBC realized the transactions were fraudulent. But by then, it was too late. Two Chinese men, Ding and Gao, were eventually identified as the individuals responsible for opening the fake bank accounts at RCBC in the Philippines. Although they were merely intermediaries, they played a critical role in the scheme. Investigators hope to extract leads from them, clues that might uncover the true masterminds behind the attack. Unfortunately, before Bangladeshi authorities could apprehend them, the two men had already left the country on flights to Macau, a special administrative region of China, where they vanished without a trace. With the remaining 4 transactions, the hackers successfully stole $81 million. Even though it wasn't the full initial amount, it was still a huge sum, making the incident recognized as the biggest bank heist in history. Despite the attackers' best efforts to erase all evidence from the bank's systems, cybersecurity experts were still able to analyze the remaining malware. They discovered that the techniques and tools used in the Bangladesh bank attack closely resembled those employed in other financial cyberattacks worldwide. This led to the conclusion that a single, specific group was likely behind this series of global cyberattacks. That group is known as Lazarus. As experts dug deeper and examined the server logs of recent attacks, they made a surprising discovery. An IP address had linked the Lazarus group to a specific country, North Korea. In a moment of carelessness, the attackers failed to cover up their information. Reports showed that the servers used in the attacks had been accessed at least once from an IP address belonging to North Korea. Additionally, experts found code containing the Korean language. Of course, there's a possibility that North Korea is just a cover created by the attackers to mislead investigators. However, according to the majority of cybersecurity experts, they are almost certain that North Korea is behind this attack. Not only financial attacks, but Lazarus is also believed to be responsible for numerous cyber-terrorism attacks and cyber-espionage campaigns against the South Korean government, as well as many other critical infrastructures in the country. In 2014, Lazarus was accused of carrying out one of the largest cyber attacks on a company, the attack on Sony. This event took place when the movie The Interview, a comedy about the CIA plotting to assassinate North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, was released. Movie theaters across the United States received terrorist threats if the film wasn't pulled from screenings. Although North Korea denied any responsibility, evidence pointed to the group targeting the enemies of the North Korean state. Like and subscribe for more updates.